Okay, we have under 6 weeks to go, and this is the most important midterm election since the first years of the Civil War, 1862. And on Battleground, we get down to it. I got three of my favorite people are going to be on here today: Mike Davis, Liz Yore, and Matthew Tyrmand. We also have a couple of surprises. I want to go to Mike, and we've changed around the order here. I want to go to Mike because to connect to the Boris that ended the first hour. Mike, attention has kind of drifted. The J6 thing can't even get a MSNBC or CNN primetime, viewing. They can't. What they have to do is they have to play it at 1:00 in the afternoon. And of course they canceled for the horrific hurricane that just hit Fort Myers and Naples. But people have lost interest in that. The special master is still the lead story on Chris Hayes, but quite frankly, nobody's really paying attention to that. And now they got this criminal grand jury on J6. Who knows what's going on with that? They're sending out subpoenas all over the place to try to generate interest and do something before they get, essentially, let's be blunt, just blown out on November 8th because of the crisis, the 9 crises they've created that the American people are having to deal with. Just Boris was talking about the special master there, and the vendors are complaining that it's too aggressive. What in your mind, as an independent looking at it from a distance, think about where we are with the special master now?
Well, it's kind of a sideshow, frankly, because the Biden Justice Department was able to misrepresent the law on the Presidential Records Act to an emergency panel of the 11th Circuit, and they bought it. And so the Judge Cannon and the special master are not reviewing these critical 100 documents that were marked classified that President Trump declassified both through a presidential memo on January 19th, 2021, and through his actions under the Presidential Records Act. He declassified these. These include the Crossfire Hurricane Russian collusion documents that he clearly declassified. That's what this whole home raid was all about. That's why the Biden Justice Department did this, because President Trump had the goods that the Obama, Biden, Hillary, FBI, intel communities were colluding to make up the Russian collusion allegations to influence the 2016 and 2020 elections. They got a short-term win. The Biden Justice Department got a short-term win by duping these judges on the 11th Circuit. Long-term, I think the Supreme Court's going to have to resolve this, and it's pretty clear under the Presidential Records Act that President Trump had the absolute right to these records. The Biden Justice Department had no right to them, and this home raid was unprecedented, unnecessary, unlawful.
So that's why I asked Boris about the overall appeal and the appellate process, and you think that's ultimately got to go to the Supreme Court. They got to make a decision about the archives, about executive privilege, about Presidential Records Act. That'll all get bundled up and solved at the Supreme Court. Is that your belief?
I think it's going to go to the Supreme Court in one of two ways. It's either the Biden Justice Department's going to be stupid and indict President Trump in D.C., and then you're going to have a uniparty judge rubber stamp whatever the Biden Justice Department wants to do. The Obama-controlled D.C. Circuit will affirm, and the Supreme Court will have to step in through the criminal route, or it could be through the civil route, through a Rule 41G civil motion to get back his property, and then it will get teed up through the civil route, through the Southern District of Florida, the 11th Circuit, and then the Supreme Court.
We're talking about the Supreme Court. We always like putting the audience over the other side of the hill. There was a couple of articles out. I got them to you about the court starts, I think, next Tuesday, the first Tuesday in October. So this next session, and look, you had this monumental kind of first year of this new court coming together. You had obviously the Roe v. Wade and the Dodds, all that. And then you had EPA versus West Virginia on the administrative state. But as I look at it, and this is not my line of country, I depend upon people like you and Liz Yore to help me through this. But it looks like the cases they're talking about, that this could even be a more monumental year as far as major decisions, because they're taking on, they're actually looking at and taking on tough cases. Am I wrong, or is that something the audience should be focused on?
You're absolutely right on that, Steve. And that was President Trump's biggest accomplishment of his first term, was transforming the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts, the federal judiciary, to constitutionalist judges who actually understand that their modest but critical role is to interpret the law and not to rewrite the law. We've had liberal judicial activists controlling the Supreme Court for over 80 years, since the Democrats threatened to pack the Supreme Court with FDR. And what we're starting to see now is a constitutionalist Supreme Court take shape. It's not all the way there. It's going to take a more incremental approach when you have justices like Kavanaugh who are more incremental. But it's no doubt a constitutionalist court, and you're going to see them rolling back federal power and making sure that these government actors stay in their lanes. One of the cases in that article you mentioned, Steve, was the House redistricting cases. Every 10 years under our Constitution, the state legislatures are supposed to decide how to redistrict these U.S. House seats. And now that that Republicans control 54% of the state legislative seats, 62 out of 99 legislative bodies, the Democrats don't want the state legislatures to rewrite House districting, to redraw the House districting seats. And so they have their Democrat Supreme Courts and Democrat commissions try to do this. And I think the Supreme Court is going to step in and say, that's not how it works under our Constitution. It's the state legislatures, not your partisan state Supreme Court justices and partisan commissioners who redraw these House seats. So that's going to be a earth-shattering case. And you're going to see the Eric Holders and the Mark Eliases of the world go bonkers.
But by the way, is two themes we're seeing. Is one theme is they're very focused on, I don't know if it's the Chevron decision or this thing about the deconstruction of the administrative state, and the other is the devolution of power out of Washington to the state legislatures. There also is this overgrab by the executive from really what is constitutional power and what should be laws. Is this some of the big themes that are going to drive the cases that they're going to take on and potentially some of the rulings?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a big part of it. It's also to protect, not only is it to make sure that each branch of the federal and state government stay in their lane. Congress legislates, the executive branch enforces the laws, and the judiciary interprets the laws, and they've all been combined into one massive administrative state where these unelected bureaucrats in this fourth branch of government have all three powers, the legislative power, the executive power, and the judicial power, all wrapped up into one. And they also have all these powers that should go to the states and the people that the federal government has grabbed since the switching time that saved nine with FDR, reinterpreting the Commerce Clause to give the federal government essentially unlimited power. I think you're going to start to see these constitutionalist judges, both on the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts, rolling back this power. And they also need to protect minority rights. That's the whole reason we have the separation of powers, is to protect us from government overreach and protect minority rights. And so when you see, for example, these affirmative action cases at the University of North Carolina and Harvard, you see these LGBT cases in Colorado, it's to protect minorities. In the case of affirmative action, you have to protect Asian Americans who get screwed on these affirmative action cases. And you have to look at Christians who don't want to make websites or bake cakes or do other things that go against their religious beliefs, and they shouldn't be forced to do it. It's not like they're the gas station on the side of the road and it's the only place you could buy gas. You know, I've spent a lot of time in Colorado. I lived there for a decade. There are plenty of places in Colorado that will make a website for same-sex marriages, and there are plenty of places in Colorado that will bake their damn cake. So let's not force Christians out of business because they are quietly objecting to this.
Mike, you're leading the fight about taking down the oligarchs in big tech. You're also doing an incredible job on really explaining the Supreme Court and the whole process of the Supreme Court to MAGA. How do people get to your site? I know you've got all your stuff up there listed, and then particularly how they follow you on social media, because you're putting up tons of content each day, and we want to make sure everybody's in the flow on this.
Yeah, another thing, Steve, is the big tech fight is going this week. House Republicans need to pick a side here. They're either with their constituents back home or they're with big tech in China. It's that simple. There are three modest bills that are going through, three big tech antitrust reforms that are going through the House this week. Republicans need to pick a side. And they can get to our website at article3project.org, article number 3project.org. It's at Article 3 Project at Article number 3 Project on Getter, Twitter, Truth, and my personal social is at MRDDMIA, MRDDMIN. Thank you very much, Steve.
When you go to Article 3, can people get the details if they're going to call their congressman or call their senator and say, hey, I need you to vote this way? If they go to the site, can they find out enough about these 3 bills so that when they call the office, we know the posse likes to be on the cutting edge of things. Is there enough information there?
There is, and they should call 202-224-3121. Light up the switchboard. Ask for both of your home state senators and your U.S. House rep, and tell them to support these big tech antitrust reforms that are going through the House right now. So 202-224-3121, just like we did with the Ketanji Brown-Jackson fight. Light them up. They pay attention.
By the way, the Ketanji Brown-Jackson is definitely, as we call it, definitely helping us in Nevada. So, sir, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Mike
you,
Davis.
Steve.
Before I do the cold open for Liz, Liz, your thoughts. You've been at the forefront of the right to life of this movement for many, many decades. Your thoughts on the coming new session of the Supreme Court, given the historic nature of last year's, ma'am.
Well, Steve, we just saw this past week the shock and awe of the FBI attacking a wonderful family. And, this is the administrative state going rogue. I have never seen in all my time in watching, law enforcement and critical, the pushback from not only the Catholic and Christian and pro-life community about what the FBI is doing to intimidate. Now, this is payback for the Dobbs decision. That's what it is. When you arrest a father at 7 a.m. in a raid with guns blazing in front of 7 small children who they knew were in that house at 7 a.m., traumatizing that family. This is your FBI. We've seen it. Trump was famous for saying, wasn't he? Look, they're not coming for me. I'm just standing in the way. They're coming for you. Now we're seeing it. And so, it's very important. They didn't arrest and enforce the law, the federal law to protect our Supreme Court justices. They haven't arrested a soul who attacked our pro-life pregnancy centers and churches. So they're coming after the good people, the pro-lifers, the Christians. We're now in the phase with this administration of the persecution of Christians. And that's the administrative.
Hang on. I want to get, because you worked in the system for many decades. I mean, you were a prosecutor. How did we, and I remember coming on this show, having you on in the summer of 2020, and you would sit there and talk about the task force and the Tiger teams that need to be put together in Chicago by U.S. attorneys. You said, hey, here's what has to happen, Steve. Here's the process. None of it ever happened under Bill Barr. So you've been there. How did we, Liz Yore, how did we get to what you work for and dedicate your life to the point that you got 21 SWAT team up FBI guys, essentially jackboot Gestapo, there to intimidate something that never even should have been filed? It's a dispute at one of these abortion centers from one of these guys that always go there and yells at the people saying the rosary. It's some minor deal. How do you get to a situation, he sent 21 there at 7 a.m. to basically terrorize the children? How did that happen?
Well, they're weaponizing their only political issue they view, and that's abortion. And so they are going to take this issue, ramp it up, try and, I guess, excite their base, the few people that feel the abortion issue is number one. I think that's what this is, a political move. 60 days before the election, I think this is, and we all talked about weaponizing the FBI. How did this start? The FBI, former assistant heads of the FBI, they're saying their phones are blowing up because the FBI, former agents and present agents are so upset about what's happening in the This is got to be a political issue, and people have got to go to the polls, and they've got to vote, and they have to be calling Congress to demand investigations into this jackbooting of the Department of Justice against good people who are not lawbreakers like the 100 pregnancy centers and churches that have been trashed, and there's not one arrest by the FBI, not one arrest of any protester in front of the Supreme Court justices' homes. I mean, this is, the lawbreakers are in charge, and so it's up to the people to fight this fight. It's ugly. How did it happen? Ask Eric Holder, Barack Obama. And politicizing the Department of Justice is the most hideous thing. We talked about it.
What we need, Liz, what we need is whistleblowers. Are your contacts and the people you work with? And you said, and I know this. We've been inundated with people that are furious that worked inside the system. Do you believe that this is going to galvanize people? Say, hey, I have to come forward now as a whistleblower. I have to come forward now and actually say what's going on. Do you think that this incident with this individual, which is obviously so over the top, people are furious about it, will cause that, ma'am?
Steve, I got to believe that of those 20 or 30 FBI SWAT teams, that there were a lot of young fathers who were embarrassed and shamed by what they were involved in. And secondly, Congressman Chip Roy is starting a movement, a letter to Garland, and he's getting 22 congressmen to join in, asking Garland to come in and explain what in God's name they were doing. So this movement, we have to get everybody to call their congressman and get them to demand that Garland come in and that these actions stop immediately. If they go after Mark Hawk, a father of 7, a good man who's just trying to save babies' lives, they're coming for all of us. So it's time people wake up, take off the blinders, and this isn't your dad's FBI anymore. It is, as we've said, the jackboots of the Obama administration and Biden administration taking aim at Christians and the pro-life movement, and we can't be afraid.
Did you ever think we'd get to this situation where, and this, remember, Hawk is the type of guy, he's the one sitting there with these people saying rosaries at the abortion centers. They've been doing it for 40 years and praying for this. This is, my mom and some of my sisters-in-law and family aunts, they were part of this. Go say the rosary outside of these abortion centers. You see these guys all the time. They're gentle and good. They're good men. They're good people, and they're not a threat to anybody. Unless you think prayers are a threat. Did you ever think we'd get to a situation where and particularly in the Catholic community, knowing how, because people in the FBI, there were many FBI special field agents, et cetera, that were Catholics, back in the old days. And there was kind of the revered, it was kind of like the highest thing you could get in the Catholic community. Did you ever think we'd get to this situation, ma'am?
No, there were a lot of Irish Catholics in the FBI. These were the guys who took down, the cartels. They took down the Italian mafia. They, made our cities safe. That's why the cities were able to be built and thrive. Never thought I'd see this, Steve, and it's a very sad day when, I have relatives who are in the FBI. I love the FBI, but it's not. It's been politicized by this administration. They're going to continue to try and intimidate, continue to try and harass, and we've just got to stand firm. And, one more thing about Mark Hawk, this young man, father of 7, he saved over the last 20 years about 100 babies from being aborted. And he and his wife don't just, stand in front of the abortion clinic praying and trying to counsel. They have reunions with these mothers and their babies. They help these mothers and babies get on their feet and start a life. This is a man who is, really a living saint. He's also one of the prominent anti-pornography speakers around the world, trying to get men and women, for that matter, to get away from this awful pornography, how it destroys families and children, and just an extraordinary man. And that is who the Department of Injustice have set their sights on.
Can we go ahead and play? I want to shift for a moment because I want to get your thoughts on some other aspects of the church. Can we go ahead and play the cold open about Italy right now for Liz?
These MAGA leaders like Steve Bannon also have some fingerprints in this right-wing surge in Europe. Bannon grasped the need to distinguish the brand while still delivering on this core vow of a fascist right-wing populist agenda. And those are his words.
What's her name? Julia. The woman. Brother Italy is one of the old fascist parties. It's one of the old right-wing parties.
It used to be fascist, but neo.
Remember, Bannon's theorem, you put a reasonable face on right-wing populism, you get elected.
He's been paying attention. Bannon sees that neo-branding as a kind of Trojan horse for the agenda that he clearly knows comes out of the fascist groups. We should note he also later tried to walk back some of that blunt theorem as recorded there. The neo-fascists have now gotten further in Italy than other countries, but this is not just a story about Italy tonight. It is a story about what you see on your screen, the rising mainlining support for anti-democracy and sometimes hateful movements.
We're going to have, we'll play Ari's thing in its entirety, and I think Joy and Reed, when we have more time, because we have to get through this, and we got Brazil, we got a lot more going on. But Liz, the reason, and I want to have you back on, we have a deeper drill down on this. The reason I wanted you to come on tonight is about the Catholic Church in this situation. I've got Archbishop Vigano gave us an exclusive last night. We put up on the site and got it out to everybody. It's very powerful. His analysis, 6 pages of what's going on in Italy right now. But immediately you had the church. You had a senior prelate today say, "Oh, we're going to keep our eye on this government. We're really going to get involved in we don't want this thing to really implement its policies." What is going on here? You have Archbishop, which I understand is outside the power centers of today, but then immediately Francis has to get involved and has to deputize and, quite frankly, weaponize his inner circle to basically challenge the voters in Italy right out of the box. Your thoughts, ma'am?
Yes, this female Mount Etna eruption has really shaken the church because she understands, like the people of Italy understand and have fed up with illegal migration and how it's destroyed the culture. The crime rate is soaring. The country is struggling with the terrible illegal migration. And of course, as we know, Francis, as the globalist that he is, this is his issue along with George Soros, migration. So we're going to have a clash, a war of the roses, so to speak. And what this Cardinal Zuppi, who is supposed to be the next pope, said is that they are going to respond with the severest of tactics to Meloni if she doesn't knuckle under to the globalists and the church's embrace of migrants. Well, if I were Meloni, I would immediately use the Carabinieri, the Italian police, the Rome police, who've been in a much too cozy relationship with the Vatican. I would start investigating the Vatican Bank in the financial corruption, the sexual predation of children. I think these guys have had for the last 9 years under Francis, have had a cakewalk. They have been involved in terrible financial mismanagement and fraud. She will be in a position to really force the law enforcement of the country to look at the Vatican.
Liz, here's what I get: the thing she gave to the World Council of Families, I think in turn a couple of years ago, has over 20 million views. I think 22 million views right now. That is the best analysis in 3 minutes of the situation, particularly about the family. What could Cardinal Zuppi in the Vatican not like about her program when she lays out really the lived experience of Christians and Catholics? It's God, homeland, family. Why can they throw it immediately? The severest of penalties. What don't they like about what she stands for, ma'am?
Because she is a threat through the globalist agenda and the New World Order agenda that has been pushed and promoted every day by Francis Jorge Bergoglio. And listen to, this part of her speech I just love. And, it just highlights how insane and corrupt this Vatican is under Bergoglio. She said, "This is the reason we inspire so much fear. This is why the event inspires so much fear, because we do not want to be members. We will defend the value of human beings, every single human being, because each one is a unique genetic code, and that is unrepeatable. And like it or not, we will defend it. We will defend God, country, and family. Now stop. If the Vatican is trying to take on, undermine a woman like that who believes those beautiful, actually, Judeo-Christian values that we have been taught, as Catholics and as Christians, she is resurrecting, the nation state to protect their borders. This is a threat to George Soros, to Jorge Bergoglio, to the Vatican, to the globalists, to the EU. She's going to need our prayers. She's going to need the support of all of us around the world. But she's tough. I think she understands. And, she was the first one who extended an olive branch to Francis. As soon as she was elected, she said, I'd like to meet the Pope. And this is the slapdown she gets, from the Vatican. And he did push it.
It's stunning. It's stunning that he's never met her since then. Only one of the most important political leaders in the world. Liz, please hang on. We've got a very special guest and a very special movie. Liz Yore, we got to also ask you about Cardinal Zen. And we have Matthew Tyrmand on Brazil. It's all coming together, ladies and gentlemen, and the fight continues, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. Be back in the War Room in a moment.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Anybody that follows me on Getter, I try to make very few mistakes in there. I actually made one during the morning show that I incorrectly, and one of our producers, not the U.S. side, but in the international side, misread it too. Actually, we read that it was insufficient. The court in Hong Kong ruled it was insufficient evidence, and I put that up as, thank God, amen. And we took it down right away because then we read and said, no, actually it says sufficient on Cardinal Zen. And Cardinal Zen is one of the holiest men in the world. I mean, I've had an opportunity to meet him and spend time with him a few times. He's an extraordinary individual. And he's on trial in Hong Kong for standing up for religious freedom. Essentially the leader of the Chinese church, Catholic Church. Liz, I noticed that Francis is sending his hammer, who wants to be the next Pope, Zuppi, to attack a woman who's God, homeland, and family, and say under the most severest penalties, we're going to be all over you. I've noticed crickets about this situation in Hong Kong. Liz Yore, can you please explain it to me, ma'am?
Sure. Francis hasn't said anything except that, in his opinion, China is not undemocratic when asked about Cardinal Zen. This is the revered Hong Kong 90-year-old Cardinal Zen who's in a show trial that started this Monday regarding the freedom protest movement. He's revered both on the mainland and in Hong Kong. The judge found that there was sufficient evidence to proceed with the trial. And suddenly she adjourned the trial, and the trial is going to resume October 26th. There's speculation as to why that happened, because the trial was supposed to be finished in a week. There's the upcoming Communist Party Congress on October 16th, where Xi Jinping is expected to once again be made king of the world for the third time, and doesn't want the dark cloud of, the global condemnation of the conviction of Cardinal Zen in this crazy show trial to tamper down his his excitement and his announcement. Additionally, it's also thought that the Vatican wants to seal its secret deal, the second renewal with the CCP, before the end of the Zen trial, because it's anticipated that because it's a show trial, he'll be convicted. So, he's going to be the white martyr.
It's outrageous.
It is. It is.
I met with Cardinal Zen shortly after the first renewal, and remember we broke when I went over for the pedophilia conference. The big news that we broke was the secret deal, which is outrageous. But Cardinal Zen came. He flew at 90 years old or at 80 some years old over to see Francis, and they didn't really even give him an audience. I mean, the audience was kind of the back of the hand. The Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, is in business with the CCP. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Yeah. Francis, the big dialogue pope, refused to meet with this 90-year-old prelate, senior citizen of the Cardinals, beloved, and he had to fly back to Hong Kong without seeing the Pope, and the Pope went ahead and signed this awful deal. By the way, to this day, there are bishops in China that are being arrested by the CCP, and priests being arrested, disappeared, kidnapped, and the Vatican says nothing. So this deal is an absolute disaster. Zen was right.
They're already up in Georgia Maloney's grill. Okay, they're already up, and they put her on notice. They're up in her grill. God family, a God homeland family, but the CCP they're in business with. I rest my. And Cardinal Zen is on trial. How can you have Zen on trial and not have the whole Catholic Church on fire about this? And the Vatican saying we're going to cut off every diplomatic relation. We're going to make sure every country in the world cuts off diplomatic relations. They haven't said a word. I rest my case. You see, exactly, they're in business with the Chinese Communist Party. We've got some good news. I want to play a trailer for the fight that we're in. This is a film you're going to want to see. Let's go ahead and play it.
The life of a Christian on earth is a struggle, a fight. We are threatened by various dangers.
It was the evil that crushed me, which never allowed me to be truly free.
Saint Michael is the breath of the Holy Spirit who will defeat the Antichrist and all evil spirits. Well, after the Holy Trinity and Mary, Saint Michael is the most powerful being of God. Tell everyone that I grant all graces, that I have great power as the one who stands before God.
A happy nation in which Saint Michael the Archangel is venerated.
Here, one comes to seek answers to the question of the meaning of our life. It is worth knowing that on this path, we have a discreet companion.
Saint Michael, Meet the Angel, in select movie theaters only on September 29th.
Okay, I want to bring in the producer, Oscar Delgado. Oscar, tell us about the film and where's it going to be if people want to go to the theater and see this. It will be a pretty unique experience. Where do they go? So first tell us about St. Michael, the Archangel, why you made the film and what people are going to see when they go see this.
Well, St. Michael is the defender of the church. St. Michael, we need St. Michael right now. He's an archangel. He's the one that took out Lucifer. He's the one that threw him back to earth. And he just said, his famous phrase is, "Who is like unto God?" So I made this film because it's everything you guys are talking about, which is how are we going to fight this? We have the right platform. We have the right ideas. But what we need is we need to invoke the archangel. We need St. Michael to come in and really help and defeat the demonic culture is what we got. So this film is going to be seen. It's the feast day of St. Michael, September 29th. And I did it on that day because I want to honor him and all the archangels and the holy angels because we are in a fight for the culture. So it's going to be in movie theaters across the country, in the United States, in UK, and in Poland. So I put it all, and it's international release, but it's for one day only, September 29th. And you can go to saintmichaelmovie.com, spelling out Saint, and you'll be able to find out where at a movie theater near you. But it's over 1,000 theaters. You're going to be able to find it. But I'm hoping that the posse come out and understand we need to invoke the holy angels. What Liz has talked about now, it's terrible what they've done to Cardinal Zen. What you keep talking about, this is why I made the movie, guys. I made the movie because we need supernatural help. We cannot just think that changing some of the political things. No, we need to invoke the archangels, and we need to invoke especially St. Michael. This is why I made the film, for us to take this battle to them. That's how we win. We invoke the spiritual and take them out.
Oscar, how long have you been working on this film from the time you got the idea to the time you actually completed the movie? How long have you worked on it?
It's a couple of years, about 2 years. To do that, we shot all over Italy. We went to Gargano, the cave of St. Michael there. So it's been an interesting journey and cutting it and putting it together. But again, my inspiration is, and you've given me the inspiration, we look around and we detail all the issues that are going on. But we need a remedy, and we need help. We need help. And as Liz talked about the politicization of the FBI and all these different things, we need to turn and have a remedy. And it's like we need to invoke God's warrior, our general, Saint Michael the Archangel, and we need to do that now. And that's why I made the film. I made it for the posse. I made it for you guys. It's one night only, but we need to start using the supernatural weapons to go after the demonic that is like overtaking us, the evil. It's everywhere, and that's why I made it, for you guys to remember that we need to do this.
So once again, Oscar, I want to make sure everybody goes there, and we're going to put up on the sites. We'll put it in all the chat rooms and put it up on Getter. Where do people go if they want to find out where the theater is? Where do they go now to go check it out?
They go to saintmichaelmovie.com. Saint, and spelling out Saint, SAINT, saintmichaelmovie.com. It'll get you there. You'll just put in your zip code, and they'll tell you where to go. And then again, if you're living overseas, it's in England, and it's in Poland, and it's in Puerto Rico. I've got it I've subtitled it in Spanish, so our Hispanic brothers can also look at that. It's everywhere. But it's for one night only, you guys. So that's why I picked that date. As I said, it's the feast day, but I need the posse to turn out to help us in this fight. We need a supernatural guest.
Are you on social media? Is any way, Oscar, they can follow you on social media?
They can follow St. Michael Movie. That's what I kind of don't have my own personal Facebook, but if they can follow the Facebook, we have the St. Michael Movie.
Okay, we're going to push this hard, and we'll push it hard tomorrow. Oscar Delgado, the producer of St. Michael the Archangel film. Now more than ever, it's a spiritual war. You definitely need this. Liz, what is your social media so people can follow you, ma'am? You're in this fight like nobody else.
I'm everywhere on all platforms. Elizabeth Yore and Your Children, YORE, children.com is my website.
Okay. Oscar Delgado, thank you so much for making this film, and I want everybody to go check it out, and I want as many people as possible to go show up tomorrow, particularly you Catholics. It's time to get better acquainted with St. Michael the Archangel. Liz, I think we need a little help, right? You can always count on St. Michael, so thank you so much.
You bet. We're going to win.
Thank you so much.
We're going to win it.
Oh, we got to win it. There's no substitute for victory, and it's got to be victory. Victory. No way. Can't lose. Impossible.
Right.
I want to bring in Matthew Tyrmand. Matthew, okay, so Brazil this weekend, and we bookended this. We had Italy with the huge victory there, but already the Vatican's got their nose in it. She's been attacked everywhere. She's a fascist. This is the rise of fascism. Bannon and all these fascists are in back of her. This is Trump fascism. The other one is Bolsonaro, the other massive win. And this is where the CCP is all over it. They had an article on foreign policy. As you know, you deconstructed saying that Bolsonaro is really the pick of the CCP when Lula is one of their partners. You wrote a 5,000-word, really stunning deconstruction of the legal. And quite frankly, for the Americans who read it, they go, oh, my God, this kind of reminds me of the United States. And this is how we got Biden illegitimately. You did an amazing job. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir. Did Twitter already put a warning and take this down already? And under what auspices did they do that, Matthew Tyrmand?
Yeah, so I put it up Sunday at CDM Press. Your friend of mine, Todd Wood, an ex-military guy who, like you, like me, is fearless. I warned him. I said, this court is going to sanction your media platform. Bring it because that's what this court does. I did a deep dive into this Supreme Court, the Supreme Federal Tribunal in Brazil that's at war with Bolsonaro and the populist movement. The majority of the court is appointed by Dilma and Lula to CCP running dogs, to use your parlance. And I put it up on Sunday. And then earlier today, I was joking with you when we were messaging that, I expected sanctions by Tuesday. Well, it took them till Wednesday. And they they removed any engagement ability. So this thing had 6,000 likes, 500,000 impressions. And they removed the ability to like it, to share it, put a strip across it saying misinformation. You click on that and it sends you to a whole Brazilian write-up from the Supreme Electoral Tribunal. So that is a subsidiary court to the Supreme Federal Tribunal, which I wrote up, Alexander de Moraes, who is this Chief Justice, at war with the right and totally drunk with power, imprisoning journalists, shutting down their social media, going to war with the right, creating laws out of thin air, which is not the job of this court, which is like a Supreme Court. It's a constitutional court. It's supposed to oversee and analyze the constitutionality of laws, not write laws. That's Congress's job. That's the separation of powers in the Brazilian Constitution. And this guy is just pushing his own laws, the fake news laws, going against any upstart populist right-wing presses and media outlets. And so they obviously reached out to Twitter and said, we don't want this up, because I know that this thing was shared widely by everybody in the Bolsonaro world in Brazil. It was going everywhere. I did a very deep dive. It's 5,000 words. Even when I wrote for you at Breitbart London and under Raheem, the biggest complaint was my pieces were too long. They're more like books because I'm comprehensive. I cross-cite well-validated facts, linked to other pieces from mainstream and non-mainstream. So this thing is unimpeachable on fact pattern. So instead of giving people the opportunity to do their own analysis and digest the information, they disallow engagement with it. And then when I put up the link again recently in the last couple hours, now when you click it, it says this is harmful misinformation that can have, negative social ramifications. And then there's a small button that you can click through to get to it. I expect the next step will be that good grace out of Twitter won't even be present. So no, censorship, and they know it because they're up against the wall. Bolsonaro party is...
Tyrmand, when you say up against the wall, all the polling they're dumping now, the suppression polling shows that Lula is within a couple of points of winning in the first round. We only got like 3 minutes, but I want you to walk through. How is that just suppression polling? Do you see that happening? Are we even going to get to a second round here, sir? Because nothing is more important than Brazil. Matthew Tyrmand.
Well, I'm sure you remember when we were in Cannes promoting Clinton Cash, and I did your radio show, we talked about Soros-style reflexivities in elections. And this is why there's so much fake polling going around where they sample for outcome. There's no way Lula can win this in the first round. I don't think there's a way he can win it in the second round either. So now they just pushed a new law, wholesale made out of thin air by De Moraes in this court, that says you now have to check your phone before you go into the polling booth so that you can't film, which is something that's happened before. You vote for a candidate and then the other candidate's picture goes up and says, thank you for your vote. Well, now you have to check your phone. And if you film and upload your balloting process, then you will be investigated and prosecuted for the same charge that they're doing with anyone who writes about the right, which is you're assaulting democratic institutions. I like to quote Queen Gertrude in Hamlet, "Me think the lady doth protest too much," when you can't even talk about the corruption of this court for fear of being labeled assault on democratic institutions. This is Stasi-style politics in supposedly one of the largest democracies in the world. I spoke to people in the Bolsonaro clan today, and some of the things going on in the sort of the last few days leading into this first round on Sunday are obscene. De Moraes has leaked the private communications between the president and his chief aide, who handles his sort of home economics with his bills for his wife and family, trying to spin it in their sympathetic press as some sort of financial corruption. You've got this assault on democratic institutions for anybody who talks about the lack of paper ballots, auditable ballots. People chant, give us paper ballots, give us auditable ballots, because they know something's rotten and there's about to be a fraud. Same reason why Twitter's putting a banner on there saying you cannot talk about the election it being anything but pure. And here, by the way, some propaganda from the subsidiary court that oversees the election that is overseen by De Moraes' court, who I wrote about. And,
we're going to have you back on tomorrow morning because this is huge. How do people get to you in the interim? Where do they go on Twitter, and where do they go on Getter and all the other Truth Social? Where do they go?
Well, at Matthew Tyrmand on I'm not really active on Truth Social, on Getter, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I'm very active right now on, just like on Sweden, just like on Italy. Now I'm active on Brazil. The pivot is so important right now to this largest democracy after us in this hemisphere, this massive economy that's about to be looted by the Chinese, as it was previously by Lula and Dilma, who are CCP running dogs. And so, Getter's where it's at. Twitter, I'm going to continue to keep posting, and we'll see what kind of BS they throw at me to try and censor. We know what their game is, and they do it right when there's a
Your 5,000-word articles must be read, particularly if you're interested in elections here in the United States. I'm going to get Captain Bannon, everybody's going to get up. We're going to read it. Make sure the whole posse does. Matthew, see you tomorrow morning. Fantastic job as usual. Let's go to Jeff. Rainforth is at the border. We've had some technical problems. Jeff, real quickly, we got a couple of minutes. You're one of the top investigative reporters. You did everything with Antifa in Portland and Seattle. Just your word to the American people. What I want American people to understand, the crisis we have in the border from the cartels. This is just not about people or asylum seekers coming across. This is a paramilitary operation that controls our border. Has your investigative reporting proven that to yourself, sir?
Absolutely. The cartels are a terrorist organization. If you look at the way they retaliate and how they take on other cartels and the governments in state government, city government in Mexico, they are a terrorist organization. What Joe Biden and the Democrats have done is hand over the border to a terrorist organization. And now you're seeing them just unleash the amount of people coming in, and they will have people on the inside of the country who will do their bidding, and they already do. It's drug trafficking, sex trafficking, money laundering, and it's only going to get worse. You look at Mexico. When we first built this wall behind me, that was 2019, and there are people already saying, who are professionals on the cartels, that it's a failed narco state. Mexico is. It was over half of their states are run by the cartels, and at that time, those professionals believed that it's a failed narco state. It's just going to get worse. They're going to continue to ensconce into America, just like I talked about earlier this morning on your show. There was a guy on the police force here in El Paso who said,
"Hey, Jeff, I want to hold that story. I want to hold that story for tomorrow. We're going to come back to Jeff Rainforth. We're going to come back to Matthew Tyrmand. 10 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to start with McCarthy and these guys making the case at Capitol Hill for the firing of Nancy Pelosi. That's how we're going to shut these cartels down, is take the House and the Senate and begin to take action. Then we're going to have Alex DeGrasse, Lou Dobbs, and the head of Rasmussen go through the polling. We'll have Jeff Rainforth back on his investigative reporting on the cartels and the control of the United States southern border tomorrow morning in the War Room.